Hello, my friends! It is so good to see you and to be with you at the UK Stroke Forum, obviously from a virtual space, but nonetheless a very important space. This opportunity is so incredible to be able to talk with you. My name is Caleb, but my friends actually call me Cal, so I'm hoping that by the end of this session, that's very New Zealand, I'm an Aussie though, but I'm hoping by the end of this session you will feel free to do so. I'm a public speaker and presenter. I'm a facilitator. I'm also the founder of Genius Network, which is a global community for stroke and other trauma survivors to share, connect, and celebrate. It's also an opportunity for survivors and people touched by stroke to build capacity to engage in community life. And along with being a founder, a speaker, I'm also a stroke survivor. When I was 24 years old, I was on the precipice of hopefully a massive career in music theatre when I had a grade 5 subarachnoid hemorrhage. This bled into my brainstem and shut down my ability to walk, talk, swallow, see, and to breathe. I spent 5.5 weeks in the ICU, started out on life support, fully intubated, so a tracheostomy was put in. I came to with a nasogastric tube in because I couldn't swallow. Now, the purpose of me being here with you right now is really to share some of my stories to hopefully humanize a bit of healthcare and the work that you do. It's to share some of these stories to deepen your insights into some of the living and lived experiences of surviving a stroke and the people who are directly and indirectly touched by stroke in the work that you do, to create a space where we can create authentic connection based on stories and not statistics. So for the next sort of 10-15 minutes, I'm going to share some stories of my journey with you to hopefully deepen those insights and give you some tools of how you can optimize quality of life outcomes for people touched by stroke. One of the stories that I remember that really shaped my early experience was I was a professional singer. Right before I had my stroke, I trained for 10 years, over 10 years to be this performer. I just landed a gig in the national tour of the musical Chicago. Sort of everything was happening for me, and my voice was like my gold. It was like it was my currency, it was my agency, it was my everything. And I remember when I came to, I couldn't even make a sound. I was breathing through a tracheostomy tube, and I had no idea why I couldn't communicate, but the hope that my first ever speechy had was that when they would pull the tube out of my throat, that maybe like by unlocking it, suddenly I'd sort of like Ariel sort of like come out of the like on the rocks kind of thing. I mean, the reality is I was in a hospital, but I couldn't have been on rocks, but you get the point. Anyway, the hope was that maybe that was what was in the way of obstructing my voice from happening. And I remember when she was sort of looming over me with some other people, all gowned up, and they pulled out the trachea and said, say your name. And I said, and they said, okay, go again, Noe. And they were like, okay. Now, in that moment, I was like completely dumbfounded as to I was like, why can I not make any sound? I have no idea why I can't even say my name. And, here's me hoping that I'm going to start like bang out a Pavarotti. But the reality was that they were learning that it wasn't something obstructing my windpipe, that something much more severe had happened. And I was smart enough to be able, and I was cognizant enough to be able to process and learn this and see this happening, even just through a series of glances and just stifled breathing. I could see the level of disappointment and fear in that speech's eyes. And when I mimed to her that, and I had to do this through mime, but when I said that this was incredibly hard for me because I'm a singer and that's the most important thing for me. And I'm just so incredibly concerned about my voice. And I remember she barely even flinched, and just almost like she was on autopilot, she said, I'm not as concerned about your voice as I am about your swallow. And she just sort of kept looking at my throat. I was just like completely disconnected from my humanity in that moment. And look, I do want to preface this that over time, I've learned the significance of swallowing, like, as I'm like not doing it very well right now, but it's a pretty useful tool to have, and it's a very necessary one. However, at that point, that didn't matter to me. You know, we were at what felt like life and death. I'd just come back to life, and I was learning that I may have lost my spirit. And that's what I was facing. But so quickly in this little moment, she just dismissed everything, and it really stalled me, and it really created this huge cavernous gap between myself and the health professional, the person that was at the peak of looking after me and my voice. Moving on from that, on the topic of my voice, I had, you know, I did learn that I had sustained a unilateral vocal fold paralysis. Hello, speechies. And so this was incredibly worrisome, and it looked incredibly bad for a long time. Eventually, my voice went from miming to a sort of a whisper to then a very kind of Marge Simpson sort of thing with a lot of nasal escape, because I also had a paralyzed velum. My soft palate was paralyzed. So I remember when I first saw an ear, nose and throat surgeon, an ENT, to assess what could be done about this vocal fold. And you know, he was doing a stroboscopy to sort of have a proper look at what was going on. And I remember he was just like, just sort of like poking around, but just like grimacing and going, it was all about him and his like, And I'm there going, oh my God. And I remember he turned around like very sort of like perplexed, and turned around and started writing notes. And I said to him from behind, this is really hard for me because I'm a professional singer. And without missing a beat, he goes, you were a singer. I mean, talk about rendering me absolutely speechless. I could not believe how much in that moment of just being flippant and probably trying to be actually funny, he disconnected again from my humanity. And I totally felt completely voiceless, completely like, what's the point? If this person doesn't believe in me and is flippant to my personality and my entire persona and my personhood, what am I meant to do with this? You know, I remember not that long after that, this was at the 6 months mark, another time I met up with a neurologist to talk about what some outcomes were, sort of from his point of view as to what the outcomes of my life was. And he said, oh, you want a guesstimate? And I said, oh yeah, because my voice had sort of improved by this point to sort of a bit more slightly hoarse whisper, but it was better. It was always getting better. And at this point, I'm sort of like walking like the Bride of Frankenstein, like it's a big wide gate, but I'm getting on. And I remember I'd walked in and I said, you know, can I please have a guesstimate? And I remember he just went, you're not going to like this. Your voice will never change and your gait will never improve. And I remember sitting there, and my mum was next to me, and I remember she was like a lioness ready to like kill this person. And I remember just thinking, why? Why do you have to like try and rob me of this hope? Why stifle it? I could see that it was like, I understand statistically that I've had a grade 5 subarachnoid hemorrhage. All the odds are stacked up against me, but the reality is that I'm still alive. I am learning to walk. I am learning how to do these things. Where is the hope in this situation? It was just so reductive and so isolating, and I don't think he had any idea what he was doing, because I mean, I got up there, and I walked out like a supermodel, trying to get out of there as quick as I could. And, you know, that journey ever since then has been one of having spontaneous recovery at almost 11 months into my stroke, when my vocal fold dropped into the midline. I did start to be able to speak. I've started to get more movement, more sensation in my face. You know, I haven't been in the right estimates that he guessed. But the thing that was so hard about that whole situation was that this person didn't look at me. They looked at the stats. They didn't look at my story. They didn't look at who I was and what my humanhood could do. But someone that did was my first speechie in rehab, and that was Nicole. Nicole, I remember I said, what do you think? Do you think that I'll ever get my voice back? And she said, I don't know, but I have a lot of hope. Because without hope, we've got nothing. And I could have cried my eyes out because how much hope Nicole gave me, along with my occupational therapist, who also helped me reframe my dialogue when I referred to myself as a stroke victim to seeing myself as a stroke survivor. All these little things that people have done throughout my journey, where they've given me little nuggets of either changing my rhetoric, giving me hope, offering me another pathway, sitting with me, doing occupational therapy where I've gone on like a rehab rendezvous of creating a date, where I took my partner at the time, it's not a partner anymore, but the partner at the time, I had to set up a thing, I had to call people on the phone with a bloody paralysis, and I had to go into JB Hi-Fi, which is a store here in Australia, to get a DVD, and I've got sensory overload, but I had to deal with all of it. But the reality was that the people that partnered with me in the process, that didn't support me, they were there, they were walking alongside me. We were eating, even though I wasn't physically eating, we were eating from the same side of the table. The peeps that tapped into my story, my personhood, my sense of humor were the ones that ignited such a different level of optimism and hope in my ongoing recovery journey, because that's what it is. It's seeing recovery as a journey. It's not being held hostage to the human that we were. It's about understanding that is a good it can be a really good point of reference, and it could be something that you'd want, but we're not going back, we're going forward. And when I sort of talk to you right now, what I really want you to think about in your experience of working with stroke survivors, people touched by stroke, is understand the influence and impact of your words, of your language, of your rhetoric. You have the power to change the trajectory of someone's journey from being a victim to seeing themselves as a survivor to becoming a thriver. So tap in whenever you can into someone's story, find out about them, make sure that the space is safe, and when I say safe, I'm not talking about a safe space that has just rails and high vis and good lighting and no sound. I'm talking about a specific, affirming, fun, and engaging space. Specific, affirming, fun, engaging. Every single one of those pieces have to be working in tandem in order for someone to see themselves as truly safe to grow in their journey of life after stroke. This is all about sharing stories, not symptoms, finding your tribe, and that is why I have started a community, a foundation called Genius Foundation. If you are looking for a place to either refer the people that you work with or to support and see thrive, come and join us. We can create a world where people are empowered, emotionally resilient, and connected. We are all part of the tapestry of trauma. Your role is that you can be one of the heroes of this. So please, I invite you now to come and check out Genius Foundation, find out what we're doing, see how you can get involved. Please become one of our regular patrons, share the links, get amongst it, and tell every single person touched by stroke that there is a tribe. There are peeps waiting for them on the other side of this journey at their time, in their space. This is about meeting each other where we're at, and I thank you so much for letting me meet you right now where you're at. I can't wait for you to have a great time with Caroline and also with Claire. But thank you to Charlie and Anand for having me in this session. It's been a real thrill. I hope that there's so much more for us to do together. Make sure you check out Genius Network, www.geniusnetwork.com. A safe space to share, connect, and celebrate, build capacity to integrate into community life. Thank you so much for having me. I cannot wait for us to work together, be like Uber, who have disrupted the transport industry, be like Airbnb, who have disrupted the hotel industry. Let's all be part of Genius Network, where together, you and I, we are going to disrupt the isolation industry. Over to you guys. Thanks a lot.